You.
The book, I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me, is a self-help guide to life, Chicago style. The book was written by the late Bernie Mac, a renowned comedian who passed away all too soon. His wife, who helped co-write it, held on to old tapes and recordings of the award-winning actor to create a remarkable book of inspirational quotes and daily motivations.
What most people don't know about him is that Bernard was very prophetic.
I'm Eddie Robinson, and stay tuned for a chat with the wife of the legendary comedian Bernie Mac, Rhonda McCullough. She speaks candidly about his amazing career on stage and on screen, and how a devastating disease impacted his life. We'll also connect with the actor who recorded Bernie Mac's audiobook, professional impressionist Reggie Reg. Oh yeah, I feel you. We hear you. I see you. It's I See You. I'm Eddie Robinson. Comedian, actor, and Emmy Award-winning Bernie Mac solidified himself as an entertainer on stage and his stand-up, as well as in film and television shows. I first witnessed this Chicago native with influences from the likes of Richard Pryor and Redd Foxx back in 1992 on HBO's Def Comedy Jam, hosted by comedian-actor Martin Lawrence.
What's up? Make some noise.
Bernie Mac's incredible energy and on-stage presence were hilarious and yet extremely genuine.
I ain't scared of you.
His authentic way of storytelling and his ability of not feeling 1 ounce of intimidation from anyone quickly thrusted him into the spotlight. In August of 2008, Mac passed away due to complications of pneumonia at the age of 50. His comedic personality, mixed with his own sense of working a crowd into a frenzy, have certainly been missed. But that's all changed now, because his living widow is seeing to it that his legacy and spirit lives on. She's recently released a new book of daily inspirations and page-a-day motivation simply titled, I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me. And we're so grateful to have with us author and wife of the late comedian Bernie Mac, Miss Rhonda McCullough. Miss Rhonda, thank you so much for being a guest on I See You.
Oh, thank you for having me, Eddie. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And you know, I must admit, when I read this book, I've never met Bernie Mac, but I've seen him in countless movies. I've seen him in performances on stage. I loved his TV show, which lasted 5 seasons, by the way, on Fox.
It surely did.
When I read this book, you can't help but hear his remarkable voice. These words on these pages, it's him. It's his voice. It's unapologetic. It's straightforward. It's poignant. But in life, you need that realism, right? That kick in the butt, so to speak, to get yourself right, to keep the train on the track. So I love this book. Do you find that more and more people are reacting that way? That when they read this book, they really do hear Bernard's voice through the piece?
Yes, because that was the whole purpose of it. We wanted it to be as if he was right there talking to you. So in all of his, well, we call them Bernieisms because he had a lot of them. So in all of his Bernieisms, I wanted me, along with Walker Bryce, we wanted it to come out like he was right there with you, like you was hearing his voice. And when I read it, it's like I'm hearing his voice all over again. Yes.
And that has to be refreshing and assuring, because in my mind, this is the perfect way to engineer a person's memory after they've passed away and moved on to another place, to capture the essence of their memories through writings, which speak to their own voice. Like if a person ever wanted to feel the presence of a loved one, all they'd have to do is pick up a book that they've written, feel their voice speaking the words that are written on the page. I feel the same way when I read something from Maya Angelou, right? I mean, I can almost hear her voice through every line of prose. Like she's right there. She's alive in my mind, speaking those words, her articulation, her phrasing. And it's the exact same feeling I get when I read this Bernie Mac book. So
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Can you walk us through the process of what it was like to create this book? About how did you go about putting it all together?
The process was, of course, it was during the pandemic, okay? And that was a time where it was very trying for many, many of us. We were isolated and we had nothing to do. So I remember speaking with Denise Jordan Walker, and we had all these old tapes of Bernie when he did his stand up from like Miltroneers, like when he was here in Chicago. So we had all of these old tapes, and we were sitting there like, what could we do? And I always thought about a book, writing a book. And I was like, what would I put in it? Would I tell our story, or what would I do? So they came up with the idea of let's put it into like a motivational thing where people can read and all of his sayings. I was like, that's a great idea, So each day we would listen to a few tapes and we would go from there. And then, of course, I got all the memories and all the things. So I would add what I remember, how he was, what he would say, what he would do. Okay. And that's pretty much was our process of how we got it. And of course, they helped me write it, helped me put it into perspective of how it should go. So that was the process. And the layout, they gave it all to me because I didn't know what to do. I had all that stuff and all the tapes and everything. So you think, what can you do? What could you do with it? And when they said the book, that it was just like, yes, it was just like golden. Yes, that's what we should do.
That was a great idea too, to record and keep tapes.
Yes, he recorded a lot of his stand-ups from Cotton Club, a lot from Miltroneers, and it was like a little variety show. He would do some comedy.
Around the world, man, everybody got their thing. Chinese people, when they say hello to you, they go, "Aso." Italian people, when they say hello, on both sides of the cheek. Black people, when we say hello, you gotta be in shape. You gotta be in shape to say hi to them. You ever know that? What's up?
He would have other comics come on. He would have singers come on. He had these dancers called the Macaronis. He had them come and dance. He had the band called the MacMan Band. They would play. Band. So
I remember reading about that.
Yes, Tuesday night was just huge for Bernie fans in Chicago. Yes.
You write in the book about the first time Bernie bombed on stage.
Oh my God!
In a comedy show, and I'm sure. How was he able to bounce back and become the comedic legend that he became?
It took some time for him to come back from that. Okay, yeah, it took some time to bounce back from that. He didn't just like, "Woo, it's all done, I'm good." Sure. No, it took a minute, and that bomb. Because we were quite young then. I want to say we were in our 20s, when that happened. So he had some years to think about how he wanted to do and what he wanted to do, because comedy was always his first love. Even though you have to do what you need to do to take care of your family, so you have to work other jobs and do other things. But as he got older and the desire grew stronger and stronger for him to do his comedy, that's when he said, I can do this. I need to do this, and me, I didn't want to be a dream killer. So it was like, ooh, that's a big leap when you're financially becoming stable and you're able to pay your bills and do things. And then hear your husband tell you, I want to quit my job. And you're like, what? Quit what? Like, really? What? Right. But then as you think about it, it's like, well, I know this was a big dream of his. I know it was in his heart of hearts to do it. Sure. And I said, I don't want to be the reason that he looks back and say, if it wasn't for you, I could have made it. You stopped me. So I told him, well, you do what you need to do. I'll be here. I got your back. Sure. I even got a second job. I told him. He's like, you ain't got to do that right now. I was like, no, I'm going to do this so we don't ever have to be trying again. Because I do remember him telling me when we were younger, when we were dating, he told me, he said, girl, I'm going to be rich. You better get on this train and ride. So I choo-choo.
And there you were.
Yes.
Wonderful. It's ICU. I'm Eddie Robinson, and we're so fortunate to have as special guest Miss Rhonda McCullum. She's the wife of the late Emmy Award-winning actor, comedian, humanitarian Bernie Mac. She's also an author who recently released a book with her husband entitled, I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me. Bernie Mac's Daily Motivational, published by Permuted Press. Prior to Bernard's passing, he decided to retire from stand-up comedy and focus solely on acting and producing projects. Now, the two of you, have known each other, had known each other for a long period of time. And, it's been over a decade since Bernie Mac's passing. What do you miss the most about your husband?
Oh my God. I miss his laughter. We used to have a lot of fun times laughing here, just over silly things. And just to hear him laugh, oh my God, he had this laugh that let you know he really was enjoying it,
Sure.
And it was infectious, and it made you just crack up even more. So I really miss that about him, just seeing and hearing him laugh. I miss that the most.
And, in essence, you and Bernie Mac had one of the longest relationships in show business. What was it like being married to him?
Well, we married very young. We were 19.
Wow.
And the early years in our marriage, there was a lot of struggle, because you're both very immature. And then we had a child. So, it seemed like I was the adult at the time, because I had to be mother and wife. And he kind of just was still being the teenager, I want to hang out with my friends. I want to do this. So we struggled a lot, but through it all, I think God kept us, and we both had a desire to make it work. So when his fame came, we had been married a long time already. So we knew what we were to each other.
Yeah. And I can imagine with this, performing in so many cities, doing that, comedy circuit, I'm sure it became a strain on your marriage. How did you deal with all of that?
I think because we still were raising a young child, and I was a nurse, so I worked, so that kind of occupied my mind. I had to take care of home first, take care of your kid, make sure she got what she needs. And then for him, I didn't even feel like it was a big strain on us because, oh my God, he called home so much. It was like he didn't give you a chance to miss it. Every 5 minutes, hey, what's going on? What you doing? The same thing I was doing 5 minutes ago. Nothing. And you know what? And I'm grateful back then cell phones wasn't out, because he probably would have really called. So, but as he got more successful and cell phones did come out, oh my God. Not only did he call home, he called the cell phone. So I never really missed him like that. And as he was gone, like a lot of times on the weekend, it was kind of like a free moment, like, whoo, I don't have to cook, I don't have to do this.
One of Bernie Mac's most notable shows was The Kings of Comedy.
South side of Chicago, Illinois.
With D.L. Hughley, Cedric the Entertainer, Steve Harvey.
The original stars of HBO's
Do you recall what it was like for him making that comedy show? And even more specific, what was it like for you during that time of his career while he was out on tour?
There was a lot of me time, okay? And I was still working. So,
wow,
yeah.
Interesting.
A lot of times when he was going during the Kings of Comedy, he was very excited about that tour.
Great.
And they all got along well. And at the time, they all had their own TV shows, too. He was the only one that didn't have a TV show. And I remember he used to tell them, yeah, y'all got TV shows. I don't. I'm the only one. I don't have no TV show. And y'all got all the TV shows. And they say, oh, don't worry, Bernie. You want to come on my show? He's like, no, I'm going to get my own show. I don't need y'all show. I'm going to get my own show. And I want to say around 2000 and 2001, I think that's when he got his show.
Yeah, 2001. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
2001, he got the Bernie Mac show. So he got his own show. And I remember he told me, he said, when I make my first million, you can leave work. I was like, okay, great. So because I was in charge of the finances, so I knew what was in the bank, because I was the one that took the money and everything to the bank. So I told him, I said, oh, we made it. And he was like, he was like, oh, no, just wait. Let's make sure. Let's add some more to it. You told me. And he was like, no. I think we need to wait. And so he called our daughter. She was in college then. She was at Xavier University in New Orleans. Called her and said, do you know your mother's trying to leave job? I told her, she said, Dad, if you recall, you told Mom that when the time came, she would be able to go. He's like, no, but I mean, she said, Dad, what are you waiting on? But he doesn't know. To this day, bless his heart, God rest his soul. I had already put in my resignation.
Coming up, we'll chat more with Rhonda McCullough, the wife of legendary comedian Bernie Mac. We'll learn more about the disease that contributed to his death and how it impacted his life, even during film shoots. And then later, we'll chat with the actor who actually recorded Bernie Mac's audiobook, comedian and impersonator Reggie Reg. I'm Eddie Robinson. Don't move. I see you. We'll be right back. If you're enjoying this program, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, I See You with Eddie Robinson. You can hear all the past episodes and be notified when new episodes are released. Also, please take a minute to give us a review or comment. We love getting feedback from our listeners. You're listening to I See You. I'm your host, Eddie Robinson, and we're so grateful that we're speaking virtually from her home in Chicago, the wife of the late Bernie Mac, Rhonda McCullough. Both Rhonda and Bernie penned a recently released book entitled, I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me, Bernie Mac's Daily Motivational. It's a book where each day has its own quote with a passage describing that quote, and what sounds like as you're reading through the pages of the book, it reads just like Bernie Mac's voice. The profanity, the laughter, the jokes, even the tears. It's all there. And you can't help but hear his signature personality and genuine spirit that's integrated within the words coming off the pages of the book. Bernie Mac passed away in 2008 from complications of pneumonia. He had a lung condition that was known as sarcoidosis. And Bernard's wife, Rhonda, is now CEO and president of the Bernie Mac Foundation, which was established back in 2005 before his death. The organization raises awareness about the disease, its impact on those who suffer from it, and the latest in treatment options and medical research, as well as information on healthcare providers and clinicians for those patients and for their families. Ms. McCullough, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here with us on ICU. And I think I read somewhere in a previous interview that you had that it really took some time for you to wrap yourself around the continuation of the Bernie Mac Foundation. And, after some years of putting that moment of your life in a perspective of the immediate moment after your husband's death, it was still pretty tough, right? I mean, what was going through your mind at that time? It
absolutely was tough. When he passed away, he, like you said, he had the disease sarcoidosis, and because of his compromised immune system, the pneumonia, he just wasn't able to fight. He had he got pneumonia, then he got MRSA pneumonia. So the MRSA pneumonia, that was a staph infection, and those are really hard to come back from, to fight, and his body just couldn't handle it. So when he died, it was like, it kind of just knocked me off my feet, and I just felt like my heart had been ripped out of my chest, because my whole life was him, from the time I was 16 to the time I was 50, because I was also 50 when he passed away too, because he passed away 2 months before his 51st birthday. And I was just like, from 16 to 50, this was the only life that I knew, and I was just kind of at a loss, like, what am I going to do? What is my purpose? what am I here for? And it took a little while, a lot of prayer, a lot of love. And after a while, you realize God leads you here for a purpose, and you have to follow that. He let, like even Bernard passed away and my life was still here. So he said, you have to do something with your life now. He's gone. So now it's on you. And after a couple of years, I thought about it. I was like, what better way, to honor him than to keep this foundation going and to just live out his legacy, because that's what he wanted, And I said, well, somehow I got thrown into it, but I'm going to go on and dive on in. And that was how I got started and kept it going. And We're still here. We're thriving. We're trying to make sure that the community has the awareness of the disease sarcoidosis. And also we're partnered with a wonderful hospital, University of Illinois Health Science System. And we have some wonderful doctors and researchers that we work with, and that we're trying to bring a cure to the disease. So I'm just very happy about all of that.
Has there been any developments or research done that perhaps usher in efforts to administer a cure for this disease?
There is research being done, and right now we don't have a cure, but the research has rendered a lot of treatment for a sarcoidosis patient to, help with a lot of their symptoms. So that's a good thing. We don't have a cure yet, but we are in the process of having lots of treatments where they can get the proper medication. And also we're in the throes of trying to make sure they get diagnosed correctly, because the first thing they get diagnosed with is always cancer. It's never sarcoidosis. So we're in the throes of that to make sure that's what happens, Yes.
And the beauty of this book, I mean, you all get into that, how to move forward in those moments. It seemed as if this condition, was impacting you, impacting your family, even while he was alive. And he would always have to be home. And, you guys spent some time as well together, as he would kind of regroup and try to recover with some of the symptoms that he was experiencing. So again, that just proves the love that the two of you had.
Yes. Because many
through
times,
this condition.
Yeah, that was not his first bout with pneumonia. And I remember he was in California one time, and I got a call at around 3:30 in the morning. And when you get those kind of calls, they're never good news, So one of his assistants called me and told me that he was in ICU. So I, jumped up. I called his assistant at the time and had her make me a flight out for that morning. I got dressed, packed my clothes, got a flight out. I think I was in California by 12 o'clock.
And this was prior to 2008.
Yeah, this was prior to 2008. Matter of fact, he was filming the Bernie Mac show. Wow. And filming had to stop because he had to be hospitalized. And that wasn't the first time. During one of his movies, Guess Who? With Ashton Kutcher, he had to be hospitalized. So a lot of those times I would get on the plane and just go on out there, so I could be with him and help nurse him back. And the last time that he was in the hospital, I kind of felt like he was going to come out of it, because he's been there before. It's like, oh, this going to happen again, and I kind of thought like, oh, maybe he'll be all right. He's going to come out. This is just another step in the road. We're going to get through this. I always get through it. And this particular time, it was like not going to happen. And I remember praying to God, let your will be done. And I also remember saying, oh God, when your will is done, please give me the ability to accept that will. And I said, heal him, oh God, heal him. But, as I've gotten older, I've learned that healing doesn't always take place that they're going to stay here on this earth. Healing sometimes means that he has to take them to heal them, And now that I'm older now, this is like 14 years later, I understand it. It's not always that you're going to be healed and able to walk through the earth. When God says his will was to heal him and take him.
Sure.
take him spiritually away. So now he lives in my heart, every single day. He lives in my heart. He's always in the back of my head. I always remember things he used to say, like when our daughter comes around and me and her, we always talk. And I say, your dad did this, your dad said this. And we always, she's like, Mom, dad was this. So now we can speak of him in happier times and speak of him in love without having to shed tears, because it was many, many, many times that you just see them and you just start boo-hooing. And I remember saying, Lord, I'm just tired of crying, Lord. Help me, dry my tears, Lord. But he had to let me do my thing. He had to let me cry him because tears are cleansing. So I had to get it out. And now I can speak of him with nothing but the love and admiration I had for him when he was here.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
It's ICU. I'm Eddie Robinson, and we're so fortunate to speak virtually with the wife of the late Bernie Mac, Rhonda McCullough. Both Rhonda and Bernie have penned a recently released book entitled, I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me, Bernie Mac's Daily Motivational. Miss Rhonda, the book contains a foreword that's written by the iconic comedian, actor, Sinbad.
I don't run anywhere. I ain't never gonna run again in my life. I got a better chance of car hitting me than me trying to run.
And man, what amazing rock did someone have to lift up to pull that name from under?
Okay. It was Denise Jordan Walker. She communicated with him and stayed on him, and he said he would love to. And when somebody says they love to want to get on our bandwagon, we're like, yes, let's go with it. Yes. So I was very honored that he accepted the challenge.
Yeah. And it's Sinbad, his real name, David Atkins, for those who don't know him, but he's an incredible stand-up comedian and actor who became well-known in the early 90s. And if you recall, Miss Rhonda, the comedy scene back in the 90s was on fire, and even on television, we saw so much, of the Black community bringing such laughter into our living rooms. In Living Color, Martin, Living Single, A Different World, where we'd see Sinbad star in. But with Bernie Mac, he had this swagger about him. His comedic shows and his TV shows, where he was so unapologetic and raw, but authentic. And he really didn't have time to be bothered with people and their negativity. And he was not intimidated by anyone. It's a bit difficult in this day and age right now to capture that genuine on-stage presence and comedic energy, that refreshing honesty that only Bernie Mac could deliver to us. Do you think that comedy today has suffered from his absence?
I do. I feel as if they do, as if they did. Look at a lot of the comedians now, and I really don't know a lot of them by name. For me, comedy has not been the same since he left this realm, this earthly realm. Yeah. I just don't find them, I don't mean any harm to anyone, but as funny as during that time was, it's just not as funny to me. And I do feel that he is just genuinely missed just for that laughter, for me anyway.
Right,
yes.
right. Because I'm sure it was just lovable to be in your household whenever he was around.
Oh, you know what? People often ask me, how was it? How was it to have him? I said, really, what you saw was what you got. He was who he was. And I said, and of course, we had a lot of funny moments in our family. But then I had to remember to tell people, now remember, he still was a Black man. So you have your moments. He still was a Black man. So every day wasn't funny. It was real life. So, sometimes I have to put him in his place a little bit. Dude, you're not Bernie Mac here. You're Bernard Jeffrey McCullough. and remember, Rhonda runs this house. Okay.
There you go.
I had to put him in place many a times. But, that's life. His head got a little swole, But I always had to bring him back to earth. Come on down now. When you out there, you can be who you are. And I'll uphold you there. But when you're in here, it does not fly.
Nicknamed you Red. I think that was
Red. Yes,
Red,
he did.
Red.
He nicknamed me Red. That's what he called me.
As you look back and reflect upon his career, do you ever wonder or think about what would have happened if he didn't have that gift of laughter and becoming a comedian? Where do you think you'd be, or how do you think the two of you would have ended up if comedy wasn't in the cards?
You know what? I had another interview and she asked me something about Bernard. And I told her, I said, what most people don't know about him is that Bernard was very prophetic. He would speak something and it would come to, he knew it. It's just something. And sometimes me and my daughter would say, please just let him be wrong one time. Let him be wrong. And he never was. So God was on him and trust and believe. He knew the Lord because he grew up in church too. We both did. But he grew up in church and he may not have went every Sunday, but he knew the Lord. And like I said, he was very prophetic. Yeah. So that was one thing. And I love that about him too. Even though it got on my nerves sometimes that he was correct all the time, but still, it was what it was.
And, as you look back and reflect upon all that you've accomplished, being a wife to the late Bernie Mac, being a mom with a daughter, being a grandmother, managing the Bernie Mac Foundation, now a renowned author. Tell us, Miss Rhonda, what lessons about your own life have you learned about yourself thus far?
People wanted to interview me and talk with me. I was very nervous about speaking with people. And it just, oh my God, it would just take me so far out of my comfort zone. And one day it was like an epiphany came to me. I said, how sad that he had to pass
for my light to start to shine, for me to know that I was enough, that I was good and I was able to stand. I didn't have to be in the background. I didn't have to be that woman standing behind her man. I could have been that woman standing right beside him. And it took me from him passing away and knowing that who I am strong. I am a strong Black woman and I can stand on my own. And it took me to learn that those many years that I'm all right and I'm going to be all right. And that's what I've learned most of all from all of this, that I'm a shining star myself. And I should have shined brightly when he was here also.
Well, congratulations on this remarkably funny, inspiring book. It's absolutely amazing to know that his jokes, his words, his presence, his spirit will continue to live on and on and on, especially as it relates to this book. It's available from Permuted Press. And it certainly has helped put so much into perspective for me, Miss Rhonda, personally. I was feeling down and out recently, and I picked up this book and read quotes from days that fit perfectly into what I needed at that given moment. So the memory and the spirit of Bernard Jeffrey McCullough and his amazing wife, Rhonda McCullough. Thanks to the both of you for writing this book. It couldn't have come at a perfect time where we truly need personal guidance, inspiration, and to steal from a previous ICU guest that we've had, a time in our lives, Miss Rhonda, where we need radical and inappropriate levels of self-love and self-care.
Absolutely.
It's so needed. So, Miss Rhonda, it's been a pleasure meeting you and chatting with you. Thank you enormously for being a guest on ICU.
Thank you, Eddie. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Coming up, a conversation with the actor who provided the voice of the audiobook for the late Bernie Mac's inspirational book of quotes, Reggie Reg. What was it like to record an audiobook for such a renowned and well-loved comedian? And not only does Reggie sound like Bernie Mac, he also does impressions of Denzel Washington, Chris Rock, and even Donald Trump. How does he go about performing these impersonations so accurately? And is there an art to being a professional impressionist? I'm Eddie Robinson. Our final segment of ICU happens in just a moment. If you're enjoying this program, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, ICU with Eddie Robinson. You can hear all the past episodes and be notified when new episodes are released. Also, please take a minute to give us a review or comment. We love getting feedback from our listeners. It's ICU. I'm Eddie Robinson, and just like that, we're grateful to have with us, thanks to Miss Rhonda McCullough, the wife of the late Bernie Mac, actor, comedian, impressionist, Reggie Reg is here with us. Thank you so much, Reggie, for being a guest on ICU.
Thank you so much for having me.
And yeah, I understand you are the voice of Bernie Mac for the audiobook of I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me publication.
Let me tell you something.
Oh! That is him. That is so him. I wanted you to, help us, tell us what the process was like, right? I mean, how were you tapped to do this project, and how was it, putting it all together?
Well, putting it together, the audiobook, we didn't know exactly how we were going to do it, because usually when you do an audiobook, you read. And in this case, this was a performance. So a lot of this stuff is from Bernie Mac's quotes, and a lot of it is from his actual experience. So it becomes easier to perform it versus reading it. And so the project took 8 days total, from a hourly process from 9 to 5. So 9 to 5 for 8 days in a studio performing the words of the affirmation book. None of us knew how this was going to happen, but once we got into reading it, we began to start understanding that, hey, this is the right way to do this. And so the affirmation book deals with everything, relationships. It deals with personal problems that people may have. It's beyond race, it's beyond color, it's beyond ethnicity, it's beyond gender and sexual preference, man. It is something that is a book that all people can inspire some inspiration from. And the good thing about it is it's coming from a comedian. It's coming from Bernie Mac. You know what I'm talking about?
From what Miss Rhonda tells me about Bernie, he was the kind of guy that he didn't take a lot of BS, but he was a get up and go for it and do it and take risk, take action. And I love that about the book. That's my favorite part of the book, because it allows me to say, all right, what can you do as an action item? How can you put this to practice? And mind you, being a native Chicagoan, what did it mean to you being part of memorializing this comic legend of Bernie Mac?
It meant a lot, because if you're in Chicago, everybody knew Bernie Mac. When I started out in the business, I was, I think, 17, 18, and finding a place where you can do what you call open mic. So open mic was at the Cotton Club, and every Monday, Bernie Mac was the MC. So a lot of comedians, a lot of poets, a lot of singers, a lot of people would come down and get 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes on stage. And that was my first encounter with Bernie Mac. And he used to give me some real good advice, because I'm new in the business. I didn't know how to really set up comedy routines, a beginning, a middle, and end. And he just kind of coached me through it. And I remember I moved to Atlanta, and he was performing in Atlanta, the comedy club in Atlanta. And he was there. He saw me. I had a couple of my friends with me, and he let us come in. It was him. It was Jamie Foxx. It was Chris Tucker that night. And I believe it was Bruce. And I didn't know any of them. And Bernie was the headliner, man. And it was a hole in the wall kind of place. But, those kind of places are the places where any performer can really get out and stretch and really work. Bernie Mac was a type of guy that you invite to a party, and when he comes, he's the type of person that say things that people don't normally say, you know, and he's the life of the party because he's real. I grew up on 81st and Morgan. He grew up on 69th and Morgan. That's south side of Chicago, and that's in the Inglewood area of Chicago. It's a very well-known place in Chicago. So, you know, our paths are very similar, and his style of comedy was kind of like sitting on the front porch and talking, you know what I mean? Letting you know what's going on. Let me tell you something. Pick up that can. The f*** is wrong with you? Some of them a bitch. You know, stuff like that, you know. The stuff he would say, you know, I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. Not one motherfucking bit. I'm tired of this motherfucker. I'm tired of the you know, stuff like that, man. And but there's a little cursing in the affirmation book, but I mean it's in verb and subject agreement, man, because you know when you're trying to really make your point, you know, it's always good to kind of say something simple and plain, and that's who Bernie Mac was. And I don't know anybody that didn't like him. I don't know anybody that didn't love to hear the stories. Rhonda told me, his wife told me one time that during the filming of Ocean's 11, all of them would get around him and he would start talking about Chicago. And they loved it, man, you know, so he was a storyteller, man. He was very unusual as a comic, and so, you know, he has always been himself. And he's never had to compromise that. And that's something that I find very remarkable, especially in Hollywood.
It's I See You. I'm Eddie Robinson, and we're speaking with master impressionist, comedian, actor, Reggie Reg. He's the voice of Bernie Mac for the book's audio recording of I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me. The book and audio recording is available wherever your favorite books are sold. And it's wild, Reggie, because you know, I was telling Miss Rhonda that the minute I pick up this book and I read the words on the pages, I hear Bernie Mac. Much like I open up a book and if I'm reading something from Maya Angelou, I'm hearing her voice. And it's as if these people are alive and they're inside our head. And as an impressionist, is that how you're able to bring these people to life? It's almost as if these people gravitate to your energy and they're like, I got to get inside Reggie Reg. And then you come and you bring their voices to life. And it's really quite fascinating.
Yeah, you know, it's a process to it. You have a lot of impressionists, friends of mine, colleagues that's in the business, and they'll tell you it is a certain approach that goes to it. There's research that has to go into the person that's watching film, it's watching interviews, it's watching the mouth movement, the inflections. It's like if I do Donald Trump, it's all about this. It's all about moving the hands. It's all about the points. It's all about these kind of things that you see Donald Trump doing. It's also this kind of thing that he does. And you have to, if it's Denzel Washington, it's okay, all right, okay. So it's all of this. It's, you know, it's all of this kind of stuff. It's movement of the head. It's the okay, all right. Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. The Academy Awards.
Training day.
Yeah, come on now. And a lot of these people have their own little habits, you know. With Al Pacino, there's always an outburst. Oh, what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Ha! Hoo-ha! Yeah! So you have to study all this stuff, and, you know, while you're in the process, if people are around, they think that something is wrong with you, you know, and I've done it, walking around and you just at an instant just working on the technique, and then you have characters, you know, you have ethnic characters, and so all of
Right.
it calls for research. Yeah. So it definitely is a process that goes into it.
And it seems like you've got multiple people, because I hear you do a great Chris Rock, you do a great Morgan Freeman. I mean, how did you first realize that, yes, I am very good at this. This impressionist thing can honestly be great for me and my career. How did you first realize, that this is something that, you wanted to get involved with and be a part of and to be a comedian?
Here in Chicago, I've done a lot of community events. And so one event that I was doing here in Chicago, a brother had came up to me and said, "Man, you should be at a comedy club." And I said, "A comedy club?" I didn't know, where one was in Chicago. And someone had mentioned to me about doing an open mic. And so I went to my first open mic here in Chicago. It was at a place called The Click. So it was then where I kind of, got into doing stand-up comedy. But I've always wanted to be on television, but I think because I do impressions, it would be better on television. But my first influence with it wanting to be on television was from Saturday Night Live, when, I would watch John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and then Eddie Murphy. Yeah, Dana Carvey and all of these guys that would go on and they would do impressions of the president. And so I kind of fit more in that, but stand-up helped me a little bit more because, you're in front of a live audience and you have to, and for me it's harder because now, you're doing an impression. Now I got to go somewhere with it. I have to take the impression of the person that I'm doing, and I have to put them in a situation, and it has to be funny. Then I have to link that with a story, and it's challenging. You learn how to do it, but that's when I really got started.
It's ICU. I'm Eddie Robinson, and we're speaking with master impressionist, comedian, actor Reggie Reg. He's the voice of Bernie Mac for the book's audio recording of I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me. The book and audio recording is available wherever books are sold. Reggie Reg, throughout all of your accomplishments, being from Chicago, you've interacted and engaged with some incredible actors, performers, Bernie Mac included. They've provided you with direction. They've provided you with guidance, some much needed advice, especially for this entertainment industry.
Yeah.
My last question to you is, what lessons about your own life have you learned about yourself thus far?
That's a good question. It's tons of them. I'll try to answer it as best as I can. Man, I would say one of the things that I've learned is that everybody is different in the sense of how they get to the same place that we all trying to get to. At one point, I used to think that maybe this way is the better way, where in reality, wisdom and knowledge and truth is really the thing that everybody at some point would have to agree with. And the other thing is, it's just learning how not to respond to things, and I think that comes with living and getting older and experience. And the other thing is just learning how to appreciate life, health. There's a lot of health issues that I don't care what the hell you believe or what your color is or ethnicity or whatever your direction that you want to go in. Health is the general thing that affects everybody, and we all have to, if we're going to be on this planet, we all have to think about our health. We got to start us to get into alcoculture and start taking kids, man, on the farms, and so that they can start seeing the process and having respect for the earth and having respect for the air, you know, because these things are the things that bring longevity in life. And so there's quite a few things that I've learned while doing that book, that affirmation book. It was very strategically written, and it has a lot of wisdom and knowledge in it. It's a good read. It's a better listen. I don't care if you like me. I like me. Who you with?
He's a master impressionist, comedian, actor. Reggie Reg, the voice of Bernie Mac for the book's audio recording of I Don't Care If You Like Me, I Like Me. Reggie, it's been a massive pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule in Chicago to be a special guest on ICU.
Well, thank you so much, and to everybody there in Houston.
When are you coming out here to H-Town?
You know what? I don't know. Whenever my team gets some bookings down there, we'll definitely come. I want to give it up to all of the cowboys and cowgirls down there in Houston, Texas. I want to give it up to all of the people down there.
Beyonce.
Yeah.
You can't forget Beyonce.
Beyonce's in Texas now? She's in Houston?
She's from Houston. She's, Third Ward.
Oh, she's from Houston?
Absolutely.
Hey, Third World Ward, what's up, baby? You know what I'm talking about. Chi-Town. H-Town.
Yes. And your favorite, Megan Thee Stallion. She's from Houston.
That's what I'm talking about. It's the best place, man. If you ever want to get barbecue and stuff, but even they party down there too.
Yeah.
Down in Houston.
Yeah.
Y'all party too.
You're the best. Thank you so much, Reggie.
My
we really
pleasure.
appreciate this.
Thank you.
Our team includes technical director Todd Holzlander, producer Laurel Walker, editors Mark DeClaudio and John Mitchell Good. ICU is a production of Houston Public Media. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen and download your favorite shows. I'm your host and executive producer, Eddie Robinson. And I feel you. We hear you. I see you. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.